on YouTube. We're live on Twitter Spaces. And Kirby Smart's in his press conference right now. As Claude Felton reminds us all the time, no live streaming is allowed, so we cannot do that at the moment. But we will definitely have you covered on Dawgs HQ with all that content. Kirby evaluating the team really sounds pleased with the team. The one thing Georgia didn't really do today was sack Bo Nix, but I don't know if anyone was really expecting a lot in that department. Georgia didn't punt but one time today, so how much does Kirby know about his punter? I know it's kind of a joke, but those are the things that if you're a coach, you're like,
good on that one punt. He looked pretty good.
Yeah, he did. And for a guy that Kirby has really been not dogging, but just saying, like, I don't know if he's the guy just yet. He looked pretty good on that one punt. But, Jake, first Dawgs game.
Real quick. Let me in the spaces real quick.
Oh, yeah. I'm tweeting it out. Hold on. I noticed that helps if one of us is on it.
Yeah.
It helps. Okay. You're a co-host, letting you be a co-host, and then I'm going to join as well. What a game, dude.
Yeah, I did not expect that kind of whipping. I think it was James Crapia, who covers Oregon, who said pillar to post.
I don't think your mic's on in the Twitter space, by the way.
Oh, okay. It's not. Juggling a lot of stuff here. I'm not very smart. I think James Crapia, who covers Oregon, put it best on Twitter. Pillar to post, beat down. And that's exactly how it panned out.
Yeah, I mean, for all the doubts that Georgia had or the concerns that we talked about or tried to come up with, one of them was Oregon's linebackers. Well, when you look at Georgia's receiving stats and you see that a running back, Kenny McIntosh, was the best receiver, look, I'm going to sound like Kirby here. I'm going to have to go back and watch the tape to see how impressive that really was and how much Oregon's linebackers are really on the hook for that. But traditionally speaking, when a running back goes off in the passing game, the linebackers probably didn't do that great of a job. Is it because they were overhyped, overmatched, or Todd Monken's just that much of a wizard? I don't know. The season will tell. But I looked at that matchup, and then I looked at Oregon's offensive line. Yeah, they kept Georgia from sacking Bo Nix, but did Bo Nix keep Georgia from sacking Bo Nix just as much? Probably so. Georgia did everything I would think they would want to do on defense today.
I tell you what, Wes, there was a point of the game where I was watching it, and I was like, all right, can Georgia get a pass rush here? And the ball was snapped, and I think before I could probably finish that sentence in my head, the ball was out. Oregon wanted to get the ball out of Bo Nix's hands, and we kind of found out why. The mistakes. They wanted to limit those. They didn't want him holding the football and having to do a lot of different things. So I think that was a big part of it. I'm not really taking much away from the Georgia pass rush in this game, simply because the design was to get the ball out of Bo Nix's hands, and it worked sometimes, and other times it failed miserably.
The stats often misleading, Jake. The story for me, I predicted that Georgia would not cover, but still win and look very physical in the process. Obviously, they looked physical in the process and covered. When you talk about a team, Georgia team, that goes from winning the national championship, I started to think back about Georgia teams in years past that had really good seasons. Obviously, only one of them won a national championship, but think about the 2017 team. They lose a heartbreaker to Alabama, but for most of the season, they were dominant. How did they start their season? Well, they looked pretty dominant, but it was against Austin Peay. And then they went on the road and looked dominant against a not that great South Carolina team. I was really struggling to think back about a Georgia team that went from one season of looking really freaking good to starting a season and looking like they didn't miss a beat. This, to me, is new territory for Georgia. It is an answered question. Can they do what looks like reloading instead of just rebuilding? And Kirby Smart's staff has assembled a depth chart that can do that.
I'm going to sound like a broken record here, Wes, but it's the third time. I think it's third show we've done, for the show, if you count the fan cast we did during the game, and I didn't break it up there. So we'll say 3 out of 4. I felt like this was a big game. I felt like this was a game where I didn't think Georgia needed to come out and do what it did, and win 49-3. But I thought Georgia needed to come out and handle business against Oregon because you come out, you're trying to defend. You win a national championship, you want another. You want a dynasty. You want to do something. And please, Georgia fans, do us all a favor and don't go ahead and start talking about dynasty after today. You guys were trying to talk about it before Georgia even won the national championship in 2017. Let's take it game by game here, okay? And I'm not saying that what you say is really going to have an effect on anything anyway, but that's what you want, though. I mean, I think everybody wants to be, everybody who loves a team, who follows a team, wants to be able to say that they had a dynasty. Well, if Georgia had any chance at that, I felt like they needed to come out here and show, all right, the national championship's behind and bigger things are ahead. And or at least big things. It don't get any bigger than a national championship. And what a way to do it, with a resounding thrashing of what I still believe we're going to find out down the road is a good football team. And nowhere near as good as Georgia. That was there were a lot of, I think one of the things that we can't forget about that is they talked about all the transfers that Oregon had. Was it 21? That's a lot. That's a lot of new players to have to try and rely on, and new coach, a lot of new pieces there. But Georgia took them apart, and 7 touchdowns in a row to start the game. You were talking about the running backs earlier. I mean, I think a lot of it just had to do with Todd Monken and really just kind of having Oregon on its heels the whole way.
Palmer Toms just got out of Kirby Smart's press conference. I believe it's over now, but he tweeted out an interesting note that Kirby Smart mentioned. He said Smart told reporters that he and Dan Lanning agreed to talk after the game about tendencies that they noticed. Obviously, they won't share it with others, but they want to help each other's teams out. The scoreboard tells you that Kirby's all business. He's not going to let up on his former assistant. But what does that tell you right there about the relationship that Kirby and Lanning developed in Athens?
Those two guys know that they're in different leagues. Obviously, that they would, if they didn't, they should be fired because they're just not very smart. And they're willing to do whatever it takes to win and make their team better, even if it means. I doubt these two teams are going to meet up again down the road. I just don't think Oregon's on that level yet. But I think that's just two coaches who are willing to do something that they wouldn't normally do, partially because of their relationship, but also because they're just hell-bent on winning.
The immediate reaction I started to hear from Georgia's radio broadcast, on social media, obviously, but I take everything on there with the entire shaker of salt, was, obviously Oregon, probably not the 11th best team in the country, shows you what pregame rankings mean. I'm not going to ask you if you're concerned about Georgia being, a paper tiger after one game, but if there's anything that you saw watching the game that maybe isn't as impressive as the scoreboard indicates, does anything jump off the page, or did you see Georgia truly dominate?
Well, I'll tell you this, Wes. I remember watching a Georgia football team that was also ranked number 3 take apart the number 4 team in the nation after 13 games in very similar fashion. So sometimes there can be a big gap between you and the next best team, and that's I'm not saying Oregon is. I don't know. I think we're looking at probably a 10-2 type team in Oregon. But
that's better than a lot of people I think would give them today.
Well, I mean, Michigan had just beat Ohio State and had blown out somebody in the Big Ten championship, and Georgia really took them behind the woods too. In fact, it was I made mention of this in a piece I read after the game. I think that's the only time I've ever seen Stetson Bennett in that league, kind of play like that. But I think Oregon's good. Georgia's just a lot better, and Georgia was a lot more ready, and Georgia had a better plan. Outcoached them, outplayed them. Georgia's elite. Georgia's elite. And
you're either elite or you're not. Georgia's elite.
you're not. And listen, that's not to say that Georgia's going to be elite every single week, but today they were. And, they may come out and fall all over themselves against Stanford next week, lead 10-0 at the half and win 28-0 or 27-0 or something like that. I don't know. But today they were elite, and they showed you that if they're clicking from a game plan and execution standpoint, they'll beat snot out of you.
What do we know about Christopher Smith's health? He seemed to be the biggest injury story of the day.
Yeah, I haven't learned anything about that yet. I don't really know. I don't know if Kirby Smart was asked about that after the game. Probably a better question for Palmer, seeing as how I wasn't able to be at the press conference today. But in the future, when we do these, just so folks know, I'll be at the
You
game.
will be there, yeah.
Yeah, and then I will be able to kind of talk to you guys, either before or after the press conference, and we'll be able to knock it out.
All right, man, let's talk about Stetson Bennett. Let's give him his due. Let's give him the time that he deserves here.
Priority mail.
Yeah, I mean, I said a couple days ago that Stetson will take the step up from just being the mailman to being the entire distribution center. And that's what he did on the stat sheet. He threw it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different guys. 10 different guys had at least one catch.
Well, some of that might have been Carson Beck. Let's just put that out.
That's true. Yeah, I need to go back and cross-analyze that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Stetson threw to Savon Clark.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely Beck.
But even if it wasn't, it shows you what Todd Monken wants to do with the offense and how many guys can get open and will get open if Georgia's doing what it wants to do on offense.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Wes, you never want to be a one-trick pony, even if that trick's really good. That comes with a negative connotation. Georgia's best football player. If you ask me, if you told me to bet it all on Georgia's best football player, I think it's probably Brock Bowers. Definitely best football player on offense. 2 catches, 38 yards. Georgia still takes the club to the seal today. That's just kind of how it works. So, if you want to go out there and you want to try to take Brock Bowers out of the game, do so at your own peril. Because if you got to spend too many resources on making that happen, Stetson Bennett has shown you that he'll make you pay. In a way, I've gotten to where I almost think that Stetson Bennett wants you to do that, because if you do that, then he just has so many other options to work with. Guys that maybe don't need the same amount of attention as Brock Bowers, but can absolutely exploit one-on-one type stuff. And Lab McConkey did it. A.D. Mitchell did it. Darnell Washington did it. Kenny McIntosh really did it.
Kenny was the team's leading receiver. 9 catches for 117.
Accounted for 135 total yards. But I was just as impressed with Lab McConkey and Darnell Washington and A.D. Mitchell, who kind of came on after the first quarter.
Stetson sets his own personal passing record with 368 yards. His prior record was actually at Mercedes-Benz Stadium as well, but it was in the SEC championship loss to Alabama.
I have to eat my hat because Stetson didn't throw for 400 yards.
Were you getting nervous?
No, I felt like, there was when Georgia crossed the 50 with him having like 340 something. I was like, okay, here we go. I'm good. Because he won't be in after this drive. They won't put him back in when they're leading 46-0. Oh, 46.
Yeah. So you talk about you try to defend Brock Bowers at what cost? The cost was 49 points today. So, I mean, that's kind of Brock doesn't get in the end zone. Good job. Congratulations.
Yeah. I remember we were when I was in high school, we were playing Charleston County, and they had this really good defensive lineman, last name Braxton. Marquise Elmore was on that team, former Georgia Mudcat, is what they called him. He was the Georgia defensive guy. He was on that team. He was a freshman. We were playing that team, and we came into that week. We're like, hey, we got to keep this guy from beating up on us. We got to keep it. So we game planned around him. And everybody else just beat us to death too. I mean, we were down 28-7, 28-10 at halftime. We tried to make a late comeback, but we got the snot kicked out of us. And that's what happens when you have really good players, is they can have a ripple effect on everybody else, and that's so big.
We got a request from Athens Steve. Jake, I'm going to add him on really quick as a speaker. Athens Steve engages with all of our stuff. He's a huge fan of everything we do. Athens Steve, make sure you turn your mic off. His Twitter handle is Rainy Steve, which is appropriate because it is raining right near Athens right now. Athens Steve, where are you calling in from? Can you hear us, Athens Steve? You got your mic off.
It says we're connecting.
Okay, now it says he's a listener again. Maybe Athens Steve wasn't ready to talk. You can request again if you want to. No harm, no foul.
Listening on Twitter Spaces, request, come in, tell us what you think about the game. We want to hear it. We want to hear from you. That's what we're here for. This post-game show, the Georgia Show post-game edition by Dawgs HQ, and we definitely want all of your feedback.
Yeah, Athens Steve is back, but we'll see if he requests to talk. If not, it's all good, man. It's tough to be live sometimes, and you don't necessarily want to jump in.
He has now.
Here he is.
There he is.
All right, Athens Steve. He went, collected himself, got his notes, took one last look at the stat sheet.
Now he needs now all he's got to do is unmute himself, and he's ready to
drill. Athens Steve. Oh, okay.
What was the story with Reed Gilbert just getting kind of pop-up time? Is that planned? Is there something else there?
Well, I mean, I think some of it had to do with when he got into the game. Those first two guys, Bowers and Gilbert, are just ahead. Oscar Delp's come on. I mean, keep in mind, Eric Gilbert got into a car accident earlier this week. Maybe he got a little shook up there, missed some time, a little unfocused. It's tough to tell, man. I mean, Eric's been through a lot. And, I think we just watch him going forward, kind of see how it goes. But he's healthy. He was out there, and that's what really matters, just getting his feet wet. Kids had a long road back, and this is a different big time than the spring game. And I think that's something we have to kind of remember there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And that's all I was curious about, just the health parts of the car accident. I didn't know if that played into it. So, yeah, other than that, man, talk about – I was expecting us to win. I wasn't expecting that. That was impressive. On all aspects of the game, to be honest. So,
well, that makes three of us, Steve. Neither Jake nor myself predicted Georgia would cover, and man, we were wrong on that one. But Georgia starting the season in mid-season form, and gosh, you want to talk about domination? It was kind of like the Orange Bowl was one of the most dominating, easy wire-to-wire games Georgia played in a while, and they kind of turned in a very similar performance against Oregon tonight. And think back, Jake, this is, apropos of nothing, but think about the Power 5 programs now that Kirby has notched in his belt buckle. You got Oregon, Oklahoma, Alabama, of course, Michigan. Notre Dame. I mean, those are some big boy programs that Georgia's brand is going up against and winning.
Yeah, Baylor, Cincinnati. You want to take it some other bowl games in there. TCU, baby, in that.
Started it all, right?
Yeah, Liberty Bowl. What a trip that was! I thought I was going to die in Memphis a couple times, but that's a rough place in some spots. But yeah, it's he's got a lot on his resume at this point. A lot. 2 wins over Notre Dame. I mean, about to see them on national television, that brand. But going back to Notre Dame and going back to my point about needing to win this game, you heard him say so many times, him and other players, winning that 2017 game at Notre Dame was a springboard for the program. I think this one is too. I don't care how good Oregon is. You look at national television, you look at the guys that Chad Simmons, all right, Chad Simmons over at On 3 Sports, the best in the business, okay, the best at what he does. So, I'm just going to get that shameless plug out about Chad, stud, reported several guys, or not several, maybe a few guys, 2 Alabama commits, 1 Clemson commit were in Mercedes-Benz Stadium to watch this, to watch Georgia, get its national title defense going. And Georgia put on a show, put on a clinic offensively, played really good defense, kept Oregon out of the end zone. I don't know how you get off to a better start than that, man. I just don't know how you get off to a better start. Georgia needed that. that's ideal. And I'm excited to see where this program goes going forward. I mean, obviously they're gonna take care of Samford next week, and they got to go to South Carolina, which can be a tough place to play.
It can be, especially at noon when it's 800,000 degrees and you're right up next to the sun. It's hot, and they're playing in air-controlled, climate-controlled conditions. Kirby was talking about in preseason and fall camp how he wished that Georgia had hotter practices because, obviously you're opening in a regulated climate against Oregon, but I think that South Carolina game very much a factor when you think about, man, I wish this team could get acclimated to something hot and get used to playing in that, because that's going to be important in Columbia. But it's one win at a time, 1 week at a time. This one's in the bag, and I agree. I think when you look at how important this game was, Georgia coming off a national championship, something that obviously none of these players had done, something that Kirby hadn't done as a head coach. And I go back to what Kirby said about what he told his players. Anytime a fan, family member, anyone says congratulations on the national championship, Kirby told his players, I want you to think about 1, 2, 3 things that you're not good at right now. What are 2 areas you need to be a better player? 2 areas you need to improve upon, so you're not dwelling on last season. And it's those little mental tweaks that I don't know if Kirby's being coached up on how to do that, or if he just truly understands the psyche of these players. But it's those little things in the margin that just keep guys from saying, okay, we arrived. And now when you have a win of this magnitude under your belt after winning the national championship, it makes it even easier to not think about last season's national championship.
Wes, I want to get back to something you asked me a while ago on Christopher Smith. It appears, based on Jack Matheson, our fearless intern, as you like to call him, tweeting from the post-game press conference, that Christopher Smith is doing interviews. And after years and years and years of covering Georgia football under Kirby Smart, if a guy comes up for post-game interviews, he's usually fine.
Usually good to go. That's a great sign for everybody.
That's some good news.
All the Georgia fans listening. Okay. Well, let's touch on a couple more things. If anyone wants to speak up.
We got a special over at Dawgs 24/7. Sorry to interrupt you, Wes. 1 year. Dawgs HQ.
It's going to take a while to get rid of that, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a good job with it thus far.
You have.
It just cropped up. Over at Dawgs HQ, we got 1 year for $1. Okay? That's like 0.27 cents a day.
I tried to do the math, but I'm not a good math.
Not even a penny, not even a penny a day. It's a penny every 4 days. Okay? So come on over. It's going to be fun. And we've already had just a massive, like an explosion on the message boards. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that game thread today, Wes. It went like
I saw the number. I dropped my jaw.
Yeah, I've seen some of them, obviously, in the past, doing other things at sites that have been up a little bit longer. I've seen them go 40, 50 pages, but that one today, it was really active. We got a good group over there. I feel like here at Dawgs HQ, we're in that stage right now. It's a great time to come over because we're kind of hitting the reset button in a lot of ways. We're still very young, and there are a lot of people that are very fired up. And
we're kind of like the Georgia defense, to be honest.
Yeah, there's not a lot of negativity. There's not a lot of like belly aching. It's just a lot of like, hey, let's have fun talking Georgia football.
Talking ball.
And listen, if you come over, I want you to post. Okay, don't pay that $1 to sign up for a year and just come over and lurk. Come over and talk with us. Send us DMs, ask us questions. We want you. We need you. We can't do it without you. We want to talk Georgia football. So come over there and hang out with us.
Well, it's what I've continued to say as we've done these live streams, and we've done a few of them now since you started on this past Thursday. We do all these with the fans first. It's with the fans in mind first. And that's why we need that community. That's why we need that engagement, that interaction to really plug into what you guys are all about. This isn't just reporting on the game, giving you stats, giving you a stat sheet, giving you quotes. Like, we want to connect with everyone who loves the Dogs, wherever you're from. And I think virtually is a great way to do it. On that note, S Rhino on our YouTube channel. If you're listening on Twitter Spaces, certainly invite you to raise a hand if you got something you want to say, like a traditional radio call-in show, but we also are streaming this on our YouTube channel at Dawgs HQ. S. Rhino, our comment champion so far, saying that's great to hear about Christopher Smith. S. Rhino believes the defense will only get better. Several young guys. That's a scary thought to think about because the weapons are everywhere, and I think he meant that on offense. I think S. Rhino meant that on offense. And then some more about the defense from J. Martin 24. The defense didn't stonewall Oregon, but they did keep them out of the end zone. I don't know what J. Martin's definition of stonewalling is. I mean, Oregon did move the ball here and there, but look, dude, I talked about it during our game fan cast. What was the biggest difference that Georgia wanted to emphasize between losing to Bama in the SEC championship and playing them again in the national championship? It was the red zone defense. And that's what they did to win the Natty. I mean, that was the difference maker in the Natty, and they still were doing the same thing tonight.
Well, they should have had plenty of practice at today because, my God, that happened, it seemed like 10 times last year with a beatdown, a team trying to score late, Georgia trying to make a stand. More often than not, they did it. They didn't against Kentucky, I don't think. But more often than not, they held that team out of the end zone late in the games. But it seemed like every stinking week, Wes, that what happened at the end of this game happened last year. Was
Drinkwitz tried to do it.
Yeah, everybody just trying to get one in at the end of the game. I understand it. I really do. I'm not faulting those coaches, but it was just over and over and over again, and it was pretty impressive. And honestly, Wes, like I know, like red zone offense is tough. It's tougher than there are a lot of teams that move it well between the 20s. I mean, geez, man, Mark Richt's offenses used to move between the 20s, especially early on, and then field goal. Billy Bennett, for crying out loud, but. With a young defense to execute the way it did in the red zone, to execute the way it did to keep some of those 2-3 first down drives and turn them into punts or turnovers, I think that was incredible. And also the aversion to the big play. I mean, you want to talk about Georgia's defense?
The explosives.
It has been doing so well the past several years against the big play. Because you look down the list at Oregon, they did have one 37-yard play through the air, they got a guy that had 37 yards after the catch. I'm sorry. That can't be right because I've got him with a 16-yard long and 37 yards. But the longest play of the day was 22 yards for Oregon. They had 22 yards, 16 yards, a couple 16-yard plays. I mean, there were no like explosives. Georgia didn't have a ton of those either. I lied. Georgia had 7 different players have a gain of over 20 yards or more. So, and then they had 8 different players have a gain of 18 yards or more. All of that coming in the passing game. So that's pretty outrageous.
We had a request from tenured instructor Craig Lawson, who is a 3-time Division II Church League softball champ, according to his Twitter bio. Craig, turn your mic on if you haven't already done so. What do you think about this beatdown on the Ducks? What's the key to success in your coaching career? What's the consistent thread been that's kept you at the top?
Well, it's waking up early, eating eggs, and it's just believing in yourself. And if all else fails, you just got to talk shit.
Sometimes that's what you got to do in the church league softball. Right.
There you go.
Sometimes the other team has the Lord on their side, and you just got to invoke the powers of evil to get your bat warmed up and put it over the fence, get your team to win. Whatever it takes. This man's dangerous.
Yeah, you sound like
this man's dangerous.
Invoking the Lord like Jim Harbaugh.
This man's part Kenny Powers, part 3-year Letterman.
Craig, what'd you think about the game? What was the moment where you said Georgia's not rebuilding, they're reloading?
backups at the end of the game, and I apologize if you already touched on this, but did that remind y'all of anything in the past in Kirby's tenure?
Well, it reminded me of the Tennessee game, and I don't know if that's what you're referencing, but last year when Georgia had kind of a flu game with its defensive starters and they still went out, sent backups out there and got Hendon Hooker benched, that's kind of what Georgia's defense did today, except Oregon elected to get Bo some more snaps, I guess, to get him ready for the season. But what were you thinking of?
So that's an excellent example. It reminded me of the 2017 game against Mississippi State at home. At the very end of the game, Mississippi State had the ball down inside the 5-yard line. I believe it was Monty Rice, who was a freshman at the time, shot through on 3rd or 4th down and stopped him short. And I was just really proud of the backups, the freshmen who were able to bow their necks. And, as far as I can tell, I know Bo Nix was still in. That was still Oregon's starting offense out there. And the guys that we had, we've heard conflicting accounts on, how each guy's doing in practice. But they bowed their necks and they got to stop right now and right there. And that was, in my opinion, that's championship football. I mean, those are the guys that are waiting in the wings for their shot. And they shut down what I believe will, as y'all said, this will be a pretty good, probably double-digit win team in the Pac-12. And I was just really impressed with that.
I was too. Yeah, Jake mentioned that. Dan Mullen, if you ever wonder why there may have been any kind of personal grudge between Dan Mullen and Kirby Smart, obviously it goes back to when they were both offensive and defensive coordinators, respectfully, at Florida and Bama. But Mullen continued to try to scratch that offensive itch against Kirby, and he could only do it when he had Pitts and Trask and a COVID year. And I'm not taking anything away from that win. I'm just saying that's the only time he could do it. Palmer Toms, fresh off of a riveting 49-3 Georgia win press conference, our beat reporter at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Palmer, give us your top takeaway, your 50,000-foot view assessment of this football team after one game.
Hey, guys. I think that what Georgia showed here is that this is not a rebuild. This is a reload. I think that's the biggest takeaway here, that they proved that they had an offense. They proved what everyone kind of thought coming in, that they had an offense that was going to be able to put up points, that had a veteran quarterback. He had what he said was the best game of his career, broke his career high for passing yards. So the stats back that statement up, showed that they have a lot of different weapons on offense, and pass catching and running back standpoint. Kane McIntosh, incredibly involved in the passing game. It finishes as Georgia's leading receiver as a running back. Is that telling of how Georgia's going to approach things this season? I don't know, but and Stetson said, hey, we could come out here and run it 40 times next week. He gave the typical Kirby Smart statement of, we're out here to win football games. We're not out here to, we're going to call plays that help us win football games. Just because Georgia passed the ball, ended up being 37 times, including Carson Beck's 6. As opposed to just 25 rushes, that doesn't mean that they're going to pass the ball more than they run it every game. But I think that overall you saw an offense that proved that it can be a force to be reckoned with. And then you've got a defense, that has been questioned for so long. It has been doubted, and they show up and give up the same amount of points that Georgia did last season in its season opener, against a pretty good Oregon team. I mean, like we've said countless times on here, I think this is an Oregon team that's going to go win double-digit games in the Pac-12, and maybe they're not SEC good, but they certainly are nationally respected, and it's a program that has done a lot over a good amount of time, and I think this is a big win for Georgia. Like Jake has said this week, it's big to kind of put that national championship win behind them a little bit. bit to move on to the 2022 season, and they certainly did that in style today.
Well, Palmer, Jake and I have spoken off and on throughout the whole game. I've been at home. Jake's at home. What was the environment like at Mercedes-Benz Stadium with all those Georgia fans once again in a building watching now the defending national championship Georgia Bulldogs start a new season?
Yeah, I think that there was to start the game, I think that there was a sense of, first of all, I'll say this. It's tough to really get a sense for the atmosphere up here in the press box, closed in press box, high above Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You're not hearing the fans, you're not interacting with the fans all that much. But I think that in general, there was a sense of wanting to not wanting to turn the page, but wanting to see this team, wanting to see Georgia football again, wanting to see what a new look team would look like. And to see that, come to fruition today with the showing that they have, especially in that first half, to shut down Oregon time after time after time, and to have the offensive just onslaught they did, throwing the ball, running the ball, they end up throwing for 2 touchdowns on the day, and they run for 4. But, it was, in general, I think it was the offensive, 368 yards for Stetson, 439 yards through the air total. I think that was exciting for fans to see. And I think it was encouraging for fans to see a defense, that stood up and did its job. To see young guys like Malachi Starks making plays. The future is bright for Georgia football. And I think that it's not Georgia fans aren't going to have to look back on, and say the names Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, all those guys, for too long. They've got a new breed of Bulldogs that are rising to the occasion.
Well said, Palmer. Last thing from you before we let you go. I know we got some press conference videos to upload, some more work to tidy up and wrap up before this one's done. Any health news, injury updates? We were talking about Christopher Smith, but he spoke in the post game, so appears to be a good sign for him. Any other updates, news, and notes about Dawgs that got banged up during the game?
Nope, I didn't see anything. Like you said, Smith spoke with the media and said it was a stinger. I think the fact that he spoke with media and B, the fact that he was on the stage, has been involved in this post game, really says all you need to know about that injury. If it had been a bigger situation, if it had been a tighter game, he's probably back in there at that series after a couple more plays, or maybe the next drive or whatever. But obviously Georgia didn't need to, and I think that was that seeing Smith go down was kind of a wake up call of like, hey, let's get in some of these guys that haven't that haven't played today. Let's get in a Carson Beck. Let's get in let's get out a Stetson Bennett. Let's get in some of these defensive, young guys that might have to, be a big part of what this team is. Especially in the future, you saw Nyland Green, you saw Dalen Everett, guys like that. You saw David Daniel, you saw Jalen Walker, Kristen Miller was in there. You saw the second team offensive line. Amarius Mims got a lot of work.
Yeah, we did notice that.
I think that in general, Georgia comes out of this game healthy. That's always a huge, priority when you're playing football. They come out of this game healthy. They, move into next week healthy. And, I think that they were able to get some good experience for some of those young guys against a very good Oregon team. And it'll lead into a week where they're probably going to get a lot more of experience against Samford.
Absolutely. All right, Palmer, great work. Great way to start the season. Let's wrap it up strong over on Dawgs HQ's YouTube channel and Dog Walk Talk message board. As Jake Rowe mentioned, $1 for 1 year. Come join us. Join the conversation. Let's talk about this Dawgs victory late into the night. Rowe, your final thoughts on this one before we pack it up for the weekend.
Well, Wes, I'm just kind of blown away. I really am, and I don't want to say that I'm easily impressed. I'd like to think that I'm not easily impressed when it comes to this team. I've seen a lot of good from Georgia's program. I try to keep a level head about it. I went to Georgia, and obviously the school and the program and all of the different sports programs mean something to me outside of professionally. But it's the job, and I'm sitting here watching this game the whole time today. I got hooped up a little bit a couple times on here, but I just don't get fired up about it like I used to. I'm blown away. I'm blown away by the way Georgia came out and began that national title defense today. I know Kirby Smart would argue that they began the national title defense about a week or so after they won the national title. It officially started today. They made a statement, and then you just got to get better from here. I mean, that's really important. Is defensively, offensively, you get better from here, and if they do that, sky's the limit.
What's that old cliche? Every college football team gets better and makes its biggest improvements from week 1 to week 2 of the college football season. So that's bad news for Samford. Jake, Palmer, everyone participating on the Twitter space and on our YouTube live channel today, throughout the day, throughout the game, throughout halftime and postgame now. Really appreciate it. We will be back tomorrow night. We're going to do this every Georgia postgame in some way, shape, or form. It won't look exactly like this because Jake will be at the games for the rest of the season. So we'll continue to figure that out, but we will have a Sunday night live show as well. After these storylines kind of percolate a little bit, things simmer down, I should say, and the rest of the college football landscape for the weekend shapes up. We'll have a little bit more context around the SEC and around the rest of college football as well. So look forward to doing that tomorrow night. We will have a time locked down and tweeted out, posted everywhere we can post it. And look, there's not much more to say about this game tonight other than a very, very impressive and thorough beating from the Georgia Bulldogs. Appreciate it. As always, Jake, great work. Your first Georgia football weekend. Off to a 1-0 start, my man. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.